The winner of 2011, Greensboro, North Carolina, site of the U.S. Figure Skating Championships. They've come together to remember fathers and brothers, mothers and sisters, friends and lovers, to honor their memories. They moved on, grew up, married, lived their lives. But half a century later, they've never forgotten. The winner of 1961, the extended family that was the U.S. figure skating team gathered at New York's Idlewild Airport, which would later be renamed for John F. Kennedy. The group posed for this photo moments before boarding Sabina Flight 548 to Brussels, the first leg of a journey to the World Figure Skating Championships in Prague, Czechoslovakia. Otto Jelinek and his sister Maria, Canada's champion pairs team, were planning to fly to the competition with their American rivals.
They were all in great moods, great shape, very happy and excited to be going overseas.
At the time, figure skating at its highest level revolved around family. Siblings and married couples formed most pairs and ice dancing teams. Coaches tutored their children. Judges and officials were typically former skaters, often married to skaters with children who were skaters.
It was a family, and that family, like all families, went from the youngest generation to the oldest.
Dick Button had won the gold medal in men's figure skating at the 1948 and 1952 Winter Olympics.
I grew up as a peer almost of the other skaters. We all skated together, and I watched all the young ones grow up. So it was a total spectrum.
Among the passengers was Maribel Vincent Owen, a 9-time national champion who'd moved into coaching. She was traveling with her daughters, 16-year-old Lorenz and 20-year-old Maribel, both Olympians themselves. That week, Lorenz was featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated as America's great figure skating hope. And there were those traveling without family, such as 29-year-old Dudley Richards, the elder statesman of the skaters, who just a year earlier had skated pairs at the Olympics with young Maribel Owen. Fred Heller had been Dudley's roommate at Harvard.
He'd get up about 4 to go over to get a patch of ice about 5 in the morning. By the time I was up and bright, he'd already worked out.
34 of the 72 people flying that night to Brussels were associated with U.S. figure skating. At the last minute, Canadians Otto and Maria Jelinek pulled themselves off Sabina 548 to wait for their coach, who was going to be on a later flight.
Before the flight, my coach got in touch with us, and for whatever reasons, he just clearly said, "You're not flying without me."
Rebooked on that later flight with their coach, the Jelineks were disappointed not to be flying with their American friends.
We said goodbye to them and said, "We'll see you in a few hours. I'll see you in Prague. Love you. Have a good flight."
Shortly after 8:30 p.m., Sabina 548 lifted into the skies. The voyage across the North Atlantic was uneventful. But when the jet approached Zaventem Airport in Brussels, something went wrong.
It was like 5 in the morning, and the telephone rang. It was this a gal calling me and saying they were all dead. She woke me up out of sound sleep, and that was it. And it was like, boom.
Sudden, stunning tragedy occurs in bright daylight as a Belgian airliner crashes near the Brussels airport.
Fred Heller, Dudley Richards' best friend, was on vacation when he heard what had happened and boarded the next flight to Brussels.
I contacted the family, so I said I was there to do anything that I could to help, and I was going to bring him home, which I did. I lost my best friend and a guy I could talk to about anything. And at times it still affects me. He made me I get a little emotional on it, but he made me a better person.
The U.S. figure skating community had been virtually wiped out. In Brussels, amid the wreckage, the magazine featuring Lawrence Owen, America's great hope, only a girl, now gone. And so many more lives would never be the same. So many orphans, so many widowed, so many who were now burying mothers, sisters, daughters and sons, fathers and brothers.
It's like cutting a whole circle out of your heart. I don't think those of us that were acquainted and knew these people have ever really been able to fill the gap of it.
Among those left behind, Otto Jelinek, whose coach had made him switch his flight.
I do go to bed very often thinking about that it could have been, and then the little bit of guilt comes up. Well, how come I didn't make that flight and they all did? It's not fair that they were there and I wasn't there when I wanted to be there.
The deep anguish of family and friends could still be felt in Greensboro, North Carolina in January. They came together to honor those they'd loved who'd perished. Dudley Richard's sister, Susan Abbey, and his best friend, Fred Heller, hadn't seen each other since the days after the crash.
Yeah, I can't believe this. Oh, my gosh.
Half a century later, the wounds have scabbed over, but haven't vanished.
I think I need that healing. I've been hiding it. Or not hiding it, but it's been building up. So I said, I think after this, maybe a burden lifted.
You are always going to be a part of the U.S. figure skating family. Thank you.
In Greensboro, there was still some healing to be done. All those who died were inducted as a group into the U.S. Figure Skating Hall of Fame. Their place in history now finally assured, 50 years after their lives were cut short.